Welcome guys to the second of my extended trilogy for the Lord of the Rings, with this one being The Two Towers. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, I'm not really going to go into like, a ton of the plot and stuff. I'm sure you've seen most of it, or I'm sure you've seen it by now. If you haven't, then you probably shouldn't be watching this video. Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, it picks up right where the events of Fellowship of the Ring left off at. Out of the whole trilogy, I guess, I'm going to say The Two Towers is my least favorite of the movies. That isn't to say it is a bad movie by any means, or that there's something that detracts from the rest of the trilogy, or like it's weak or something like that. It's really not that. I just think of all the things that happen in the trilogies, the stuff that happens in this one is not exactly my favorite, but the opening of this movie is amazing. I still remember actually when I saw the opening of this movie when I was when I was a kid, which is when I saw this, was that, it picks up, literally it shows the, you shall not pass. It shows that again, and it actually shows it for a decent while, and I remember as a kid seeing it, I was like, am I watching the same movie again? Like, what are they doing? And then they show Gandalf actually fall from the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and the camera follows him straight down as he and the Balrog have quite literally a fight to the death. It is amazing. It is by far one of the coolest openings I've ever seen in any movie. It's completely badass. Ian McKellen, he's flying down with a sword, just striking the fucking shit out of the Balrog. Laying vengeance down upon that thing, and it is amazing. So that happens, and it's super awesome. And then it picks up with Frodo and Sam. They're continuing their quest to get the Ring of Mordor, and then enters Gollum, who he briefly makes an appearance in the first one, but you hardly really see him. This is sort of his first actual movie. Some people might find Gollum to be annoying. I don't think he is at all. I don't think he's like a Jar Jar Binks or something like that. He's annoying, but like in a good way. It's like he's kind of like whiny and bitchy, throughout both the Two Towers and Return of the King. But Andy Serkis, it was, I don't know if it was this movie that put him on the map or not, but I'm pretty sure it was this one that put him on the map, because he does all the motion capture voice work and everything for the character of Gollum. That still I think works pretty well. You can tell that the effects are a little bit dated now, just because of the movie came out in 2002, so that's gonna be natural, but I'd say overall it still holds up pretty well, and there wasn't too many times where it seemed like it was like bad computer effects or anything like that. I'm just gonna dive into some of my favorite scenes of the movie. I think the real highlight of this movie, aside from the opening, is the Battle of Helm's Deep. It's really what the whole movie, in a sense, is leading up to, because you have Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, they hook up with the Rohirrim, and they free King Theoden. Gandalf the White is in this movie. So I also remember, because I'm just going to be straight up with you. When I was a kid and I saw these movies, I did not read any of the books. I did not read the books, I just saw the movies, thought they were awesome. So when Gandalf comes back midway through The Two Towers, I was super surprised. Which, it's actually funny, because going through looking at the original marketing materials for this movie, they actually completely spoil the return of Gandalf the White, which is one of the most epic, surprising moments of the second movie. Completely just give it away in the trailer, which really was a mistake, I feel like, because now thankfully when I was a kid and I saw this, I didn't actually see the trailer on it. I just watched it and I was like, oh my god, Gandalf isn't really dead. So yeah, Ian McKellen, he's back as Gandalf, but his Gandalf in this, of course, is different than what he is as Gandalf the Grey. His character as Gandalf the White is more stoic. He has more of the actual leadership qualities, I think. He's sort of more influential towards kings in this one and the Return of the King. I mentioned in the last video that I prefer Gandalf the Grey just because I think he has a little bit more fun and has a little bit more warmth to his character, whereas Gandalf the White isn't necessarily cold or anything like that, but it has a stronger presence and is probably arguably stronger than Gandalf the Grey. Ian McKellen is amazing at that. I love the scene where he essentially has like the exorcism scene of "Free the demon from you, Theoden! I release you." So there's a whole bunch of new things that are introduced. We get introduced to the kingdom of Rohan, which I really think that's what the Two Towers more revolves around, is Rohan. Which, it's interesting, because if you compare Rohan to Gondor, they're both kingdoms of men, but they have distinct, their values, I think, have definite distinctions between them. King Theoden is a total badass, and I think an amazing on-screen leader. I feel bad that I don't actually know the actor's name, but I just reference him as the captain of the Titanic. The actor that plays him, I think he did an incredible job in the movie, and I don't know if he really does a lot of work past Lord of the Rings and, Titanic and stuff, but if he does, I should probably try to see more of his work, because he is amazing as King Theoden, and really I think he just knocked the role out of the park and did a great job for it. The Battle of Helm's Deep, extremely great. That's where you also have the witty, I'd say more of the witty banter and rivalry between Legolas and Gimli is introduced. The whole, the great scene where the battle's starting and Gimli's like, "I can't see anything!" And Legolas is like, "Should I get you a wooden box?" It's great. Shows their competitive nature and just their great buddy relationship that they have. I could almost watch an entire side movie of Legolas and Gimli just going off on an adventure. But the thing I think that makes the Two Towers my least favorite of the trilogy, honestly, is probably the Ents. It's not that I have any problem with walking trees and, Treebeard or any of that stuff. It's just, quite honestly, and I think it's just, I guess, more of a accuracy to the book, and the Ents are kind of boring. And anytime I remember even rewatching this movie, that when they would go back to the Ents, I'd just be like, "Oh, great, we get to be with the Ents," and not get to be with Aragorn and them preparing for the battle and all that stuff. That was the more interesting stuff in the movie, or seeing Saruman create his army of Uruk-hai. But yeah, anytime they kind of went back to the Ents, I'm not even sure if they just devoted too much screen time to it, or it's just them being faithful to the book, because if you're reading the book, the Ents take a very long time to say things, and they are mostly just walking and not really doing much in the movie, at least till the very end of it, when they have the March on Isengard, which for that moment is great how they do that. I thought it was very well done how they did the arc of the Ents not wanting to go to war, but then Merry sort of does reverse psychology on them and kind of tricks them into seeing what Saruman has done to Fangorn Forest. And that whole emotional swell of the Ents and them taking charge and taking out Isengard, that's definitely a very fulfilling moment of the Ents, and it's a good payoff for you having to kind of sit through just them walking and talking very slowly and just not really a ton happening that would really interest the average viewer. Let me talk about the actual extended edition footage for this one. It's kind of a toss-up. So the extended edition footage in this, I think it is... I talked about how in the last one it really develops Boromir and Aragorn, and the Boromir footage from this one is actually, I think, the best footage from the extended edition on this. We get to see more insight onto the family dynamic between Boromir, Faramir, and King Theoden, or what the, oh my god, I can't remember what the king's name is. We do get a couple flashback sequences with Boromir where you see how his father, his father really idolizes him and thinks that he is the top son, the one that gets things done, and he sort of just sees Faramir as just kind of baggage and just, a backup to Boromir and just not really nearly as valued. And seeing that in the extended edition, I think it was really actually great to see, and it was also just nice to see Sean Bean back in that role. I think Boromir it's by far one of his best roles that he's ever done in his career, and so anytime I see him do it, even if it is in a flashback, it's great. I'm really drawing a blank on who plays Faramir in the thing, but he's been in 300 and a handful of other movies, but he's really great. A quick shout out to the guy that plays Faramir is, if you've never seen the movie Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole, he voices one of the older wise owls from the original battle in that. That movie is an amazing family movie. It's a great sort of mix between The Lord of the Rings and The Lion King, but with owls. And the animation's awesome, and it's also from Zack Snyder, who did 300. See that movie. It's great. I think of the extended editions, Two Towers has the funniest of the added on scenes on there. There's some great little funny scenes with Gimli, and then we also have towards the end with Merry and Pippin essentially fighting Stoner's Paradise with a bunch of food and weed over in Isengard. And while I did enjoy a lot of that stuff, the problem I had with it is that if you're watching it in the extended edition, there's a reason some of this footage was cut. As much as I enjoy seeing it as a super fan, when you're watching some of it, it would go from like these I think I actually remember, and I could be mistaken on the timeline for these scenes, but you have, is it Théodred? Or you have the scene basically at Helm's Deep where the elves from Rivendell sent by Elrond come, and you have that one guy who was introduced in Fellowship of the Ring come in, and he has like this very dramatic, sad death. And then shortly after that scene, we get this really funny scene actually between Legolas and Gimli going over their kill count. And Legolas is like, "Oh, I killed this one." And he shoots him while he's on the ground. He's like, that only counts because he's twitching. I mean, like, it was fine seeing that. It was funny, but it detracted from the weight of that moment. And there was just moments like that where they'd have something serious and, something where it's getting darker and heavier. And it would kind of bounce back to this sort of very obviously thrown in comedic scene. And so I don't think that stuff necessarily works as well. I enjoy seeing it. I think it's funny because obviously I've seen these movies a million times and I've seen the theatrical, so I know what's still there originally. But if I'm being honest, I prefer Two Towers, the theatrical cut, over the extended edition. Just because I think the flow of it definitely goes better. Despite the Boromir scenes, it would have been nice if they left those in, but overall, I'd say watch theatrical cut, and that's just my opinion on that. Final thoughts on The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. It's definitely a solid watch. It's definitely a solid movie overall of the trilogy. If I'm going to give the movie a grade, I give Fellowship of the Ring an A+, even for the extended edition. I'm going to give Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers a solid B+. And theatrical, I'd probably still give it an A-, but for this, I'm going B+ for the Two Towers Extended Edition. It's still a super good time and still super well worth a watch, and there's some great stuff in it. I mean, compared to Return of the King, it's really hard to act like that, this movie is better than that one, which very excited to tell you guys, and you already know this, but I'm going to see Return of the King here very soon. It's sad that I've already come to the end of the re-releases, but I don't think I'll be feeling sad when I'm sitting in a movie that's 4 hours and 23 minutes in one sitting. Let me know what your thoughts are on the actual extended footage. I'd really like to know what you have to say about that, and if you agree with my thoughts on it flowing better with the stuff actually being cut out. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Definitely appreciate your support. Just be sure to check out some other of my videos on my channel. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care.